Someone you love is going to die. Maybe they already have. And when that happens, you know exactly what follows. A funeral home, flowers, a ceremony with specific clothes and specific words spoken in a specific order, a grave with a stone marker so nobody forgets. We treat this ritual like it's obvious, like it's the only way grief could possibly work, but every single one of those customs, the coffin, the burial, the grave marker, the mourning period, every single one of them was invented. Someone at some point in human history did it for the very first time. And for 300,000 years before any of that existed, your ancestors still lost people they loved. They just had to figure out what to do with no instruction manual, no religion, no funeral home, no one who had ever done this before. What they did next reveals something about grief that modern humans have almost completely forgotten. Let's start with the oldest evidence we have. In 1908, archaeologists excavating a cave in La Chapelle-aux-Saints, France, made a discovery that stopped them cold. A Neanderthal skeleton, but not just any skeleton. This man had been placed in a pit, deliberately dug, deliberately shaped. His body had been arranged with care, legs drawn up, head resting to one side as if sleeping. Around him, animal bones, possibly food left for a journey. He was roughly 60,000 years old. Here is what makes this extraordinary. This man was old. His spine was severely arthritic. He had lost most of his teeth years before death, which meant someone had been feeding him soft food for a long time. He could not have survived alone. His community had kept him alive long after he was useful, and when he died, they did not leave him where he fell. They dug a hole, and they put him in it, and they placed things beside him. This is not survival behavior. This is grief. But Neanderthals are one thing. The real question is what happened among our own species. Homo sapiens, people genetically identical to you. And here is where it gets extraordinary. In Kafse Cave in Israel, archaeologists found a burial site approximately 100,000 years old, a young woman buried with a child across her arms. Not her child, as the skeletal ages don't match, but someone placed them together deliberately. The child had antler fragments buried beside him. Red ochre, a pigment made from iron oxide, was scattered across the bodies. Red ochre is not functional. It does nothing for survival. It is color. It is meaning. It is the oldest known funeral decoration on Earth. Someone 100,000 years ago looked at the body of someone they loved and thought, this moment deserves color. This moment deserves beauty. Now here's the part that nobody talks about. We have been taught to think of ancient humans as barely scraping by, focused entirely on food and predators and survival. But the archaeological record tells a completely different story about how they treated death. Across every continent, on every timeline, the pattern repeats. The dead were not abandoned. They were not left to the elements. Again and again, in cave after cave, in site after site, archaeologists find the same things. Bodies positioned with intention, pigments used for decoration, objects placed beside the dead, tools, food, jewelry, flowers. In Shanidar Cave in Iraq, a 60,000-year-old Neanderthal burial contained pollen from at least 8 species of wildflowers. Someone gathered flowers and laid them around a body 60,000 years ago. Let that land for a moment. So what was actually happening? What were ancient humans doing in the hours and days after someone died? Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer communities, groups whose lives most closely resemble those of our prehistoric ancestors, have documented something remarkable. Death was not a private event. When someone died, the entire community stopped. Not for an hour, not for an afternoon, for days. Among the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, the death of a community member triggers an immediate gathering. Everyone comes. Everyone sits together. The body is with them. They do not remove it quickly. They do not hand it to professionals. They stay with it. They talk to it. They talk about the person as if they are still present, because in a very real sense, in their worldview, they are. There's no separation between the living and the dead in the way modern Western culture insists upon. The boundary is permeable. The person who died is still, in some sense, here, still part of the group, still listening. And this is where mythology was born, because ancient humans did not have the word death in the clean, final sense we use it. They had the word gone, and gone raised an immediate and terrifying question. Gone where? Every ancient culture on Earth, without exception, answered this question. The Egyptians built an entire civilization around the answer. They called it the Duat, the underworld, a parallel realm the dead traveled through on their way to eternity. Every spell, every pyramid, every piece of gold buried in a tomb was a tool for that journey. The ancient Mesopotamians believed in a land called Kur, a dark, joyless underworld beneath the earth where the dead existed as pale shadows of the living. The Norse believed in hell for the ordinary dead and Valhalla for warriors, a feast that never ended, a fire that never went out. Because what is more terrifying than the idea that everything simply stops? The ancient Greeks had Elysium for the heroic dead, fields of perfect weather and endless peace. These are not random stories. These are answers. These are the things ancient humans told each other in the dark around the fire the night after someone died. Because the alternative, the possibility that the person they loved had simply ceased to exist, was not something the human mind was built to accept. We are the only species on Earth that knows we are going to die. And for 300,000 years, every human who ever lived had to find a way to carry that knowledge. The answer was always the same. They told a story, but there is something else the archaeology reveals, something that modern grief science is only just beginning to understand. Ancient humans did not mourn alone. This seems obvious, but the implications are enormous. For 99% of human history, there was no such thing as a person who processed grief privately, who went home, closed the door, and sat alone with their loss. That was not possible. Ancient humans lived in groups of 25 to 150 people. There were no private rooms, there were no closed doors. When you lost someone, your entire world knew it immediately, and your entire world sat with you. Grief was a communal act in the same way eating was a communal act, the same way storytelling was a communal act, something that happened together, witnessed by everyone, shared by everyone. In 2007, researcher George Bonanno at Columbia University published findings from decades of grief studies. He found that the single greatest predictor of resilience after loss was not time. It was not therapy. It was not even the nature of the relationship. It was social support, the presence of other people. Ancient humans did not discover this. They never needed to. They built it into the structure of existence itself. You could not be alone in your grief because you were never alone at all. And here's the part that should change the way you think about your own life. We have made grief into something that happens to individuals. We have scheduled it. We have professionalized it. We have given it a timeline. Bereavement leave, grief counseling, the 5 stages you're supposed to move through in the right order. We removed the body from the home. We handed it to strangers. We built rituals designed to be completed quickly so that everyone can return to productivity. Your ancestors would not recognize any of this. For 300,000 years, grief looked like this. Everyone stops. Everyone gathers. The dead are honored with color and objects and words. Stories are told around a fire about who this person was and where they have gone. And the community holds the grieving person until holding is no longer needed. No timeline, no professionals, no productivity. Just presence, just the oldest thing humans ever learned to do for each other. In a world with no medicine and no safety net, where anyone could die at any moment from a predator or a sickness or a bad winter, the only thing ancient humans could offer each other was this: I am here. I am not leaving. You are not alone in this. 300,000 years of human history, and that was always enough. The question is whether we forgot it or whether we just stopped allowing ourselves to need it.